video is complementary to the challenging unhelpful beliefs video, and just a slightly different way of presenting what some of the common thinking styles are that lead us to feeling bad or participating in self-defeating behaviors. So why do we say distorted? Distorted can sound pretty harsh, but in some cases it can be very true. I think most of us have experienced interactions with people who have used distorted thinking. This can often lead those on the receiving end of these interactions feeling pretty confused, angry, depressed, or even trapped. Often it will prompt arguments. How can you reason through a conversation like that? Or those on the receiving end of these messages may just totally disregard what the sender of these messages is really trying to say because they think the sender is crazy and can't be reasoned with. So why bother to pay attention? It is important to understand when we do this, either when talking to ourselves or to other people. Using most of these thinking patterns can be very unproductive and at worst, even volatile. This is why I want to bring some of these patterns to your attention. First one is called filtering. Filtering entails looking at only one part of a situation to the exclusion of everything else. So you can see from this little cartoon, there's lots of positive things that this guy was told every day, except for one that could be a little bit negative. And so that's the one that gets through and hits you. So the distorted thought is, I am a jerk. So a rational comeback to this could be, well, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I get frustrated and say the wrong thing, but I can go back and fix this with the person or learn from it. Or you could say, I don't think that comment I made or thing I did was that bad. And it is possible that person may have took it in a way I did not intend. I am not a jerk, and I can go clear it up with this person if I want to, or if they let me. But again, the idea here is that you're really taking just a small portion of the information that you got through the day and really only focused on the negative one. Okay, so next is polarized thinking. Polarized thinking entails looking at things in extremes, basically all or nothing. Of course, this is a satirical image I stuck in here in hopes to be humorous, but also to show the example that I suppose, if taken to its end conclusion, many things do result in death. In this case, your distorted presentation may lead you not to bother striving for quality, which could negatively change how you behave in the world. You give up on quality. Rational comeback could be, don't everybody roll your eyes at once here, but quality may make the journey, even if it is toward death, better. The challenging questions video also gave some good examples of how polarized thinking could color your view of a situation and yourself if you would like to go back and check it out. Overgeneralization is another very common thought pattern that can cause us to disregard important distinctions that exist in whatever it is we are overgeneralizing about. If you are married and you have a female spouse and you have said something to the effect that women can't drive, you have most likely experienced the drawbacks of overgeneralization statements. So, rational comeback could be, well, that particular female can't drive, and then smile at your spouse. On a more serious note, this can become very divisive in human interactions. Unfortunately, this can have very negative effects on people's communities and societies as a whole. Is making the assumption regarding what other people think. Usually it is us putting our insecure or suspicious fears onto another person as if we are projecting them like a movie projector onto a blank screen, which in this case is the other person. Then whatever we have worried they think becomes what we believe they think, and we treat them accordingly. This is so harmful to communication. It is very important to check out what your partner is actually thinking before you get angry at them for what you believe they are thinking. In a later video, I will go over what is called the speaker-listener technique to give some guidelines on how to do this. However, back to the basic mind reading. I did want to additionally point out that there is a romanticized fairy tale belief out there that we should be able to find a partner that just knows us. Or you might believe if they really loved me, they would know what I am thinking or know what I want. This is largely very far from the truth. In my many years as a therapist, I have not found people to be this gifted. We just aren't. Therefore, I argue that there is no shame in telling people what you are thinking or what you want. Although I would also argue that the right time and place to speak your mind is crucial when you do this. Okay, so this is one of my favorite memes. Time and again, I have seen people do almost the same thing metaphorically. My patients, my friends, my coworkers, my family. I have even worked long enough that I have seen my employers do this in relation to situations. Catastrophizing may be getting us ready to be prepared for the worst and figure out how to manage it effectively. That is good, as long as that is all it does. But ruminating about possible catastrophes can be hurtful. I've said this before, I know I repeat myself, but catastrophizing when you are trying to go to sleep will only elevate your perceived threat in your mind, release chemicals to make sure you are awake and ready to fight, and you will not sleep. So therefore, if you feel the need to catastrophize, go for it, but not when you are trying to sleep. I recommend you distract yourself with something pleasant or soothing. Your worries will be there in the morning waiting for you if you would still like to have them. Again, as in the Challenging Beliefs video, I would recommend using the ABC or the AAR method to talk yourself down off the ledge if you do find yourself catastrophizing during the day. I have noticed over the years that humans, as a group, have a tendency to think this way, which is personalizing. Unless there is a solid proof to the contrary, we will try to figure out how we contributed to the outcome. My theory is this contributes greatly to the prevalence of superstition. I can tell you, being an ice hockey goalie mom, I have a lot of them. Never say shut out is one of them. Enough about me though, let's talk about this hipster guy up here in the image. One may think he is a bit self-centered, and an argument could be made that it is true. Personalization can come across like you are the source of all good or you are the source of everything bad. Both are forms of being self-centered. No one is that powerful. I'm going to give you another example. It is a bit ridiculous, but I'm using it to prove the point. You are walking down the street with your best friend and part ways at the end of the street. Your friend continues to walk and is killed by an asteroid. Clearly, this is not your fault, but it is common to play the what if game. What if I had asked them to come with me and walk my way? They wouldn't have died. Therefore, it is somewhat my fault they died. Or at the very least, I had the power to prevent it. Many times people have a tendency to do this to assign guilt to themselves, which is just another way to have perceived control when they actually don't. There is a whole other way to look at personalization too. It could be when you take something to heart that had very little to do with you, and then you are offended or hurt and may retaliate back. Personalization is especially harmful in these situations. So the trick here is to look at the situation and ask yourself if you are being objective when you are looking at all the data points of the situation. Or do you have a habit of taking things too personally? Those of you that have kids, or have ever been a kid, or been a supervisor, or have been supervised, so basically all of us, are probably pretty familiar with the fallacy of fairness thinking style. Fallacy of fairness is judging people's actions based on a set of rules that you concocted or subscribe to about what is and what isn't fair. Problem here is that not everyone sees the world the same way we individually see the world, and what seems fair to me may not seem fair to you. It is rare that both dogs and cats get treated exactly the same. There are just too many differences in their situations. So this belief really only becomes problematic if you adhere to your beliefs so stridently that you become consumed with the unfairness and become rigid in your thinking. Then it can cause you to feel threatened when maybe that is not the case. Or it could cause you to begin to alienate people in your life because they view things differently than you. Again, you kind of need to look at all of the different data points of the situation, or it can be very damaging to your life overall. So Heaven's reward fallacy, which can sometimes be called the martyr's fallacy. The idea here is that if you sacrifice enough, you will be rewarded in the long run. Maybe this is true, maybe this is not. But taken to extreme, over time, you can lose the ability to stand up for yourself, causing you, and potentially the people around you, harm. Sometimes the hard thing to do is to stand up and say no. Codependency could be an example of this thought pattern. I talked about emotional reasoning in the challenging beliefs video, so this may be a bit of a review. But it is basically the notion that because you feel a certain emotion, such as fear, for instance, you then make the jump to believing that you are in a threatening environment, even though you may not be. You look around your environment, in this case, to find the thing that must be there that makes it a threatening environment. For example, people who've had traumatic experiences will take everything in the environment that was associated with the traumatic event and declare those non-threatening triggers threatening, even though they are not. Additionally, because you may be feeling insecure, you may assume someone is thinking negative of you. Looking at this poor woman's statements here, you can see that her statements could demonstrate emotional reasoning, as well as a few other distorted thinking styles, such as jumping to conclusions. Blaming, on its face value, may seem like it could be a helpful thinking style, but it definitely has its ups and downs. If this is a primary thinking pattern in relationships or on the job, it could create quite a bit of animosity. It may mean you are afraid to make or accept mistakes, which can often end up leaving others resentful or distrustful of you. You are inherently less likable. One of the great things about taking responsibility for your actions is the acknowledgement that you are not powerless in a situation. You have the ability to make it better in the future. Being right is very similar to the blaming pattern. I'm not going to go into this one too much, but I will encourage you to reflect on yourself. Are you okay with being wrong sometimes? Do you always have to be right? So again, with all these patterns of belief, as with most things in life, it is when they are taken to extremes that there is a problem. If you notice it is causing you distress in some way, or you were relying too much on just one or two, it may be time to look at those layers of beliefs you have going on and examine them down to the core beliefs. Then begin to challenge those beliefs and decide if you really need to use them the way you have been using them. As always, if you get stuck, feel free to reach out to me or your local mental health provider for some assistance. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.